times where you could get anywhere you wanted on a train in this country. Those days are over. But trains still have a special magic and music. Think of the great train songs: Midnight Special, Rock Island Line, Mystery Train, Casey Jones. Yeah, Casey Jones. Let's talk about Casey Jones today. Casey Jones, the man, the real crash. Shazam. And the song Casey Jones. Pretty interesting story. All right. So it's National Chocolate Cupcake Day. So eat some sweets and let's get on board the train.
Driving the train high on cocaine. Casey Jones, you better watch your speed. Trouble ahead, trouble behind. And you know that notion just crossed my mind.
Hey everybody, it's episode 29. And I can tell you right now that Casey Jones was not high on cocaine when he was driving that train, despite what my psychedelic Grateful Dead kind of ramblings might indicate. Okay, Casey Jones was born in 1863 in Casey, Kentucky. That's where he got his name. His name was really Jonathan Luther Jones. So, as a kid, he's mad about trains. He, as a teenager, he starts working in the train yards. He becomes a brakeman in Jackson, Tennessee. Gradually works his way up to his goal to be an engineer on a train. So he's working the trains. He's being an engineer, running up and down Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky. He's got his own whistle. Casey Jones built his own whistle, which had a different sound than everybody else's whistle. He had like this kind of 6-part whistle that he attached to the steam mechanism of the train. And people knew it. You know, they'd say, oh, there's old Casey Jones coming down the line. Casey was known as being the guy who would bring her in on time. He was punctual. He would never fall down. So sometimes that meant, going a little faster than you should. He was known to be a little bit of a risk taker, but, by the time he was established as an engineer, that was kind of behind him. And he was just a good engineer. But he was certainly known as the guy who got her there on time. And this was very stressful for the engineers at the time because the train companies and the big bosses were really pushing that you always get there on time. And they kind of didn't care about your safety. And this, a lot of people quit. But not young Casey Jones. He was a happening guy. He was bringing her in on time. All right. So, and he was tooting his little horn, and people were setting their watches by Casey. He was Mr. Punctual, going up and down, moving that freight. There was one famous episode where he's driving his train along, and he can see up ahead there's a bunch of kids on the track. So, he toots his whistle, and, the kids scatter. Yeah, as kids do. But there's a young girl who is frozen on the tracks with fear right in the middle of the tracks. Casey's yelling to his brakeman, shove her in reverse, and they're trying to slow down the train. Casey can see there is no way that this train is going to stop before they get to the girl. So he climbs out on his locomotive, gets down to the front to the cow catcher, braces himself, and as the train gets up to the little girl, he scoops her up, saves her life. She's not injured at all. And that is a crazy ass heroic thing to do. And it is in the paper, as it should be, for God's sakes. So, Casey Jones, a little bit of a local hero for that thing. And gradually he works his way up so he can actually be an engineer on passenger trains, which he totally loves. And he's trying to, he's an ambitious lad, and he wants to, get ahead in the world. So, on the fateful day in April of 1900, Casey Jones and his fireman, Sim Webb, they had just finished one run, a full shift, and they get to their destination, and it turns out that the engineer who was going to take the train back the other way called in sick. And Casey, being the go-getter that he is, says, "Okay, it's fine. I'll drive the train back. I'll do a double shift, basically." So he's already tired, and Sim, his fireman, is an African American man. He's also tired. But they're a great team, and they feel like they know what they're doing. They get in the locomotive going the other way. Eventually, here's the deal. The locomotive going the other way came in late. So by the time they roll out of the station, Casey's already an hour and a half late. And we know Casey hates being late, right? So he's figuring out, from point A to point B, from this town to that town, how much can I make up? Can I go a little faster? He's pushing this baby. At certain points, they say he was going 100 miles an hour. Like, I looked up the land speed record for 1900, and it's like 80 miles an hour. He's like Chuck Yeager. He's like a test pilot, for God's sakes. He's an astronaut. Nobody goes 100 miles an hour in 1900. They call it the cannonball run, which is just kind of a generic term for a fast train run. Anyway, he's doing the cannonball there, and going pretty fast, and 75, 80 miles an hour, maybe even up to 100. He's making up the time, from town to town. He is like calculating, okay, I can get her there on time. If I just speed up here, speed up there. It's foggy, rainy weather, which apparently is the perfect weather for freight trains and steam trains of that era. The locomotive he's got is like this rocket ship. It's like the top of the line, and he's pretty excited to be driving this kind of cool equipment. So anyway, up ahead, there's this other train, and they're going off on a siding. Okay, and they know they got to get off the main line because Casey's coming through, and something happens when they're trying to get their train off onto the siding, and it gets stuck. And it's still on the main line, or the ass end of the train is still on the main line. So Casey's just booting it along. Casey is feeling pretty good about this. He's going, the old girl's got her dancing slippers on tonight, Sim. And he says, we're going to make it. We're going to pull this train in on time, even though we started out an hour and a half late. So goes around the bend, and Casey can see there's a fucking train on the main line. He's pulls on the brakes, and he can tell right away there is no way in hell he is going to be able to stop before he hits that train, before they bump, as they say. He yells to his fireman, Sim, jump. You got to get out. We're going to crash. So Sim does. Sim gets himself down on the edge of the locomotive, and he flings himself off and rolls around, knocks himself out, but he's okay. He gets up later. Casey, meanwhile, is doing everything he can to slow the train down. And he's pulling his whistle there to make sure, alert the other guys, get the hell out of the way. He's got his hand on the brake and his other hand on the whistle. He's slowed the train down from about 75 miles an hour to about 35 miles an hour when, boom, he can't stop. So he smashes through the first car, smashes through the second car, smashes through the third car. His locomotive is destroyed. Casey is killed. But no one else is killed. Casey has managed to slow down the train enough so that none of the passengers on his train actually die. They get bruised up a little bit. There's some people getting shaken up. I don't know. Somebody might have got a broken collarbone or something. Nobody killed. So Casey is hailed as a hero. They say when they pulled him out of the train, he still had his hand on the brake and his other hand on the whistle to warn people, get out of the way. So that's Casey Jones. So April 1900, Casey Jones dies. It makes the papers. It makes the papers all over the states that, brave fireman, brave engineer. saved lives, bit of a hero. But here's the deal. It ends up in folk song. How did that happen? Let's take a look at that.
Woke up this morning, it was drizzling rain. Around the bend come a passenger train. Somebody yodeled and a hobo moaned. Jimmy been dead, he's a long time gone. He's a long time gone. He's a long time gone. Well, Tuesday morning it looked like rain. Round the corner come a passenger train. Under the boiler lay Mr. Casey Jones. He's a good engineer, but he's dead and gone. He's dead and gone. He's dead and gone.
Okay, so the first song, little snippet you heard, was from Waymore's Blues by Waylon Jennings. So that was put out in '78, I think. Second song you heard was by Furry Lewis, who's a Southern blues man who recorded it in 1928. It was called Casey Jones. Pretty similar, you might say. There's even other similarities in the song. They have a common ancestor. Okay, so here's the deal. Even while Casey Jones was alive, there was a fellow in the train yard named Wallace Saunders, and he was an African American man, and he was what you call an engine wiper, which I guess is a pretty low level kind of job in the railway yard. And he was making up songs about Casey even when Casey was alive. You know, just he loved Casey, and Casey liked him too. So he was making up these songs, you know, about the great Casey Jones, you know, because Casey was a bit of a local legend even when he was alive. So when Casey dies, Wallace takes this to another level, and he basically finishes the whole song, and he writes the legend of Casey Jones, okay? And he pulls this together from all sorts of other old songs he knows. Apparently there was a song called Jimmy Jones, which was about a train wreck, and he just kind of switched Casey for Jimmy. And there's a bunch of other songs that kind of all got stitched together in this original version of Casey Jones. So this song gets pretty well known in the railway world of the South. Mostly the African-American workers there, they all know it apparently. And they're singing it. And okay, next, couple of white guys, vaudeville artists, this Lawrence Siebert and Edward Newton. They're traveling around the South, and they hear everybody singing this song, and they're going, what the hell is that song? I love that song. We could do something with that song. We could make some dough from that song. So they eventually track down Wallace, who wrote the song, and they buy the song off of him, apparently, for a bottle of gin, which is about the best investment they ever made, I think. And they basically put it together, and they rejig it, they make it, you know, they smooth it out, make it nice, they add a chorus, you know. It's the famous chorus, the same one Johnny Cash sings in his version of Casey Jones. Johnny's version basically is the Siebert and Newton original version that came out on on those cylinders, you know, those Edison cylinders in 1910 or 1909. You know, he's got the chorus, you know, Casey Jones climbed into the cabin, Casey Jones with his orders in his hand. All that stuff. Johnny's version is the same. Johnny's is the original version. So they take their vaudeville song and they publish it, and people record it. It goes friggin' nuts. People are mad about this song. Everybody is singing this song. Okay, so it gets to the point where there's a recorded incident of one man was declared insane because he persisted in singing Casey Jones at all times, day and night. and he started singing. They had to throw him. They arrested him, and as soon as he entered the courtroom, he was still singing. They had to take him out and put him in the funny farm. People love this Casey Jones song. Casey Jones, the brave engineer. So what happens here? Something interesting happens is that people in the States, especially in certain areas like around Kansas, that the newspapers start listening to this song and then going, where did this song come from? And everybody in the States suddenly becomes an ethnomusicologist. So they're writing these things in the papers going, who knows where this song came from? And people are writing in, they've got these theories, all these ex-engineers are writing in saying, oh yeah, the song's not really about Casey Jones, it's about some other guy named Stacy Jones, or they've got all these cockamamie ideas. It starts to make sense that the song is actually, as I said, stitched together from older songs. And it's kind of funny because there's these people, even some characters, some serious characters are writing in, hobos. There's this guy, Haywire Mac McClintock, who says he learned the song in 1909 when he was switching boxcars in Memphis, and he heard it from Wallace Saunders himself. And he says all the Negro railway men knew the song. A lot of them sang it, and here's the original version, and he writes it out. And it's kind of been debunked. Haywire Mac kind of made shit up, I think. There's some other guy, Kelly the Rake. He claims he knows all about it, and basically he wrote it. There's all these interesting characters. Everybody's fascinated by, not only do they love the song, but they want to know where it came from. So later on, this like reaches a frenzy around 1910, 1911. This is like only 10 years after poor old Casey squashed to death in his locomotive.
Ow! 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 Ow!
It calms down for a while, and then it flares up again in the 20s, and more people are investigating it, and they're talking to more ex-hobos and ex-engineers, and basically they kind of get a feel for this song as it's got 3 or 4 sources, and here they are. There's a bunch of old songs about train wrecks which have kind of been stitched in here. There's a bunch of songs about hobos and ramblers. There's a couple songs about rounders and men of loose morals, and they all kind of have a verse in the Wallace Saunders version, and on it goes. So the funny thing is, even later on, our buddies John and Alan Lomax, ethnomusicologists, they get in and they want to know what the hell's up with this song too. They try and find Wallace Saunders, the guy who wrote the song, but he's dead. Bummer. However, they interview another man, this guy named Cornelius Steen. He knew Saunders. He was buddies with him. He claims that he gave the original Jimmy Jones song to him, and and Saunders just liked the song and added more verses. So there you go. Everybody's frickin' fascinated by this song, and it just keeps going. And also, it kind of goes in 2 different directions. So there's the vaudeville version of the song, that's the Siebert and Newton version. It keeps going up, and it turns, bluegrass guys pick it up. Johnny Cash picks it up later on, decades and decades later. And then there's kind of the blues version, which sort of follows the original Wallace Saunders version a little more. And guys like Furry Lewis recorded in 28. And all these words kind of get jumbled up together, and they make for this fantastically rich and interesting legend about Casey Jones. So that's where we're at with Casey. Poor old Casey. In the vaudeville version of the song, they basically put down his wife. For some reason, they say Casey's wife had another papa in Salt Lake City, and poor old Casey's wife is going, did not. Fucking assholes. She spends the rest of her life trying to fight back and say, no, she's a good woman. She didn't have another papa. The 2 guys, the vaudeville guys, the Casey Jones is the only thing that ever actually worked for them. Siebert died in an accident, penniless, in 1917. They notified his wife, and she says, "I don't know. I haven't seen him in years. I don't know what to do." Apparently, but in his obit, it said he's the man that made $10,000 from writing the words to Casey Jones. Well, he didn't really. I mean, he wrote some of the words, and the other guy, Newton, he died. He died in 15. Neither of these guys lived long to really reap in the great benefits of their great song. So anyway, there you go. That's the song Casey Jones. Carrying on to this very day, lots of people doing it. Apparently, it even works into a Motorhead song, riding with the driver, And Casey Jones is, I found out, a Ninja Mutant Turtle guy. He's the guy with the hockey mask, and he likes beating up people with a baseball bat. I did not know that. Okay. Casey Jones was a TV show with Alan Hale in the 50s. It goes on and on. Okay. So Casey Jones, folk hero, railway man, crazy song. All right. You guys be good. I will say that Elizabeth Cotton, remember Elizabeth Cotton, the great North Carolina kind of singer and guitar player? She wrote an instrumental version of Casey Jones. And I'm going to go out on that, and I'll see if I can pull this off. You guys be good, and we'll talk to you next week.